Hey, everybody, welcome to the Contrarians. We have a special topic tonight, special topic discussion on kind of an oddity from a band that's well known for a totally different genre of music than what the album that we're going to talk about is. So we're actually going to be talking about Kiss, and the panel discussion topic tonight is going to be on the album The Elder. So we're going to kind of go around, and each of us is going to give our points on the Elder, whether we're pro Elder, against Elder, kind of in the middle or somewhat. I'm going to start off, first of all, and just say that I'm kind of more in the middle than I am anti-elder, but I am going to kind of give up my anti-elder points of the things that I don't like about it. But first, let me start with the things I do like about it. So I have my notes here. So the things I do like about it, I like some of the songs. I like The Oath, Only You, Under the Rose. I even like A World Without Heroes. It's interesting because it's one of the Kiss records where I mostly like Gene's stuff over any of the other members' stuff. So it's mostly Gene songs I like on the record. I like that The Elder does get kind of heavy in points, which is pretty cool. And they definitely tried something different, and I respect that they kind of tried to do something out of the box than what they normally do. And this isn't really a negative point or a pro point or anything like this, but in one of our discussions, I know somebody who might even be here mentioned something that this kind of feels like a sequel to Destroyer. Like if you listen to Destroyer first and then put on The Elder, it kind of makes more sense. To
Exactly.
me,
That's what I said. Yeah.
yeah, to me, this actually kind of feels more like a sequel to Gene's solo record. Because songs from Gene's solo record, kind of like Mr. Make Believe and Man of a Thousand Faces and stuff like this, kind of feel Elder-esque to me. And I do know that I think this was Gene's concept, so I think he probably had a lot of his heart into it. But this kind of feels more like a Gene solo album sequel than anything else to me. Anyways, so here's some points that I made about the record. So I know that they had discussed making The Elder into a film. This sounds like kind of a cool soundtrack. If it was a soundtrack to like a Jim Henson movie, I don't know what they were going to actually film, like an action or adventure movie, but I could totally picture a Jim Henson movie coming out of this soundtrack, like puppets and all kinds of stuff, like the Dark Crystal or something like that. That's what this soundtrack kind of reminds me of, or the music does. I find a lot of the stuff on the record, even though they're trying to be serious, comes across as silly to me. A lot of the lyrics are kind of silly. Paul's frequent falsetto voice kind of, to me, is just kind of reaching a little bit too far for him, and it just sounds silly. Just a Boy, Odyssey are some of the tracks that, again, I'm using the word silly, the phrase silly, but that's what comes across to me when I listen to it. It's almost laughable in points. And even like friends and family that I know who know that I'm a huge Kiss fan, when I play stuff like this for them, this is the kind of stuff where they're like, what? Like they don't, it's just interesting how Kiss gets compared to heavy metal bands. But like you listen to this record and there's some shit on this that's like, I'm sorry for swearing, but um, like Mr. Blackwell is just probably the worst Gene song on here that I don't like. When I hear the song I cannot believe that Kiss gets compared to heavy metal bands like Motorhead and Megadeth. Like they kind of get lumped into that heavy metal thing a lot, which I don't think is, especially when you hear I. And it's funny too, because when you look at the lyrics, when they say stuff like "I don't care about money" and "I," yet they put their logo on anything under the sun so they can sell money, or get money. Like it's not even being genuine in a way. Um, Mr. Blackwell is a song that I kind of don't like. And the lyrics in that are kind of funny too, because like I think the song starts off with Gene saying stuff like, "Oh, I don't give a damn and I'll live my life, whatever." But yet this song was inspired by, I think, I don't even really know the story, but some guy named Mr. Blackwell who kind of dissed Gene dating Cher, or dissed something that Gene wore on the red carpet. And yet, Gene's saying, "Oh, I don't give a damn," but yet he's writing a song, like a diss track towards this guy. And it's just kind of like, come on. Like it's ridiculous, that he's wrote a song about a guy who's kind of like a red carpet, like fashion guy who like critiques people's like it's just silly. Like I don't even know the total story behind that. I'm sure somebody might even talk about that. I'm a huge Ace fan. Dark Light is a terrible Ace performance. I mean, if you listen to the verses, it sounds like Ace is practically falling asleep while he's singing that song. And that's the way I feel when I'm listening to it. Even the guitar solo in that's not even very spectacular for an Ace song. And then you compare it to the Ace solo album, which came out, just a few years before that, and listen to the energy in his voice on his vocals on that record. So like the performances aren't the greatest, although there are good performances on here. I like Ace's guitar in other songs. Just Dark Light just is, I don't know, it's not a good Ace song for me. It's probably the worst Ace track on any Kiss record. Escape from the Island sounds like a Ramones song. Like it's way too simple and straightforward of an instrumental, especially for a concept record. I'm not even going to get into how dismally this record sold and how Kiss themselves hate this record, but those are kind of my points on it. I'm going to kind of go around. So I'm going to be in the anti-Elder camp. Like to hear everybody's response to that or your own points. I'm going to go around and kind of just pick people out. You can kind of comment on what I say, bring up your own points. I'm actually more in the middle. I don't hate the record, but if I'm going to point out flaws, those are kind of some of the flaws. I do think it's well produced. I listened to the remastered version today, which has the correct track listing, and it does kind of flow, except for Escape from the Island kind of feels out of place. Same with I and Escape from the Island and Mr. Blackwell kind of feel out of place. But other than that, I'm going to throw it over to Joe, because I know Joe's got an interesting story, and I'll let you go next.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so it's interesting you brought up the Gene solo, because if anyone here has the vault, the Gene Simmons vault, there's got to be 4 or 5 different versions of Only You on that alone. So that kind of becomes really tiresome. So Kiss was my gateway band. Alive is, my 2 favorite albums of all time are Alive and Aerosmith Rocks. It's like 1A, 1B, because that's when I really started to get into hard rock and metal. So, you know, I've always stayed true to Kiss because I wanted to relive that high I got from Alive. And occasionally since Alive, they've touched on that Rock and Roll Over, side 4 of Alive 2, you know, some great kick-ass songs. But and you mentioned, you know, the heavy metal, by 1980, you know, I was into the new wave of British heavy metal. Motorhead just blew my mind with Ace of Spades. Saxon, Iron Maiden's first album. Dio joined Black Sabbath, and Ozzy came out with this hot new guitarist, Randy Rhoads, that was doing stuff even beyond what I heard from Eddie Van Halen. Judas Priest. So, you know, Kiss releases Unmasked, and I still can't get through that album. Fast forward to 1981. So this was released in November, and I remember it distinctly because it was right before Thanksgiving. I worked at a grocery store, and there was a record store a couple doors down I always went into. And I didn't even know this album was coming out. And I go in there and it's on the wall. You know, I have the t-shirt and the album here. And I'm like, it says Kiss, but the music from the Elder, and it has his hand. There's no pictures of the band. So I buy it, and I come home and I put it on. The original track listing started with The Oath. And I was like, holy cow, they're back. And I called my best friend who was also in the metal. I'm like, you got to hear this. The Oath is incredible. It's, you know, back, they're rocking hard. Then as you listen to the album more and more, it just gets weird, and you're just, I don't know what the concept is. Just a Boy, I don't mind, because we discussed this, you know, on our Patreon page. It has the guitar scrape, so it automatically pulls me in. I think it's kind of a cool, but the falsetto voice, I agree with you on that. I just don't like that. I like the more, you know, ballsy Paul Stanley voice. But you know, as I listen more to it, I would say I'm in the middle, but more positive, because I was so happy it wasn't Unmasked. And I feel somewhat The Oath, you know, kind of was a gateway into Creatures of the Night. You know, that song, because it was started going to a heavy approach. But yeah, it was really strange. We couldn't really figure out. We would listen to it on, you know, it was in our rotation. We had a rotation, my metal friends and I, but we could never grasp what the concept was, and there was a lot of weirdness to it, you know, with Mr. Blackwell, and then the song The Odyssey. We're like, you know, we would just skip that to get to I. But one thing I want to bring up definitely is, and it was Brett when he talked about the Elder, when they were on Fridays. That was one of their best live appearances ever, in my estimation. You could look it on YouTube. When they played The Oath, I mean, that kicked ass. And Ace Frehley's not on this album a lot, but he plays the lead on the Oath live on Fridays, and it's just a great performance. And yeah, I'll stand by that. When they appeared on Fridays, it was great. And if you think about that show, you know, you had Larry David, who was just like this struggling comedy writer. You had Mike Kramer. He was just this comedy guy that no one heard of. Then you had Kiss, who was on Hard Times, and you fast forward to the 90s and they were all superstars, and they were on this show. So yeah, I have interesting memories of the Elder. It's weird. I don't know if it's weird in a good way. I'm kind of in the middle, but I was happy it wasn't unmasked. So I would have to lean. I'm a little bit pro Elder.
Cool. Thanks, Joe.
Oh, one more thing. Only you are the man-child. I just wanted to say that.
Why don't we go with Todd next?
Okay, well, I guess I could say I'm pro Elder, but I don't think I can say that without acknowledging the huge flaws there are in the Elder. And I'll get to that more in a minute, but I want to talk about what I like about it. When it came out, I started listening to Kiss in 1976. And by the time 1981 rolled around, I had moved on to prog rock and a whole bunch of stuff. And so when I found out that Kiss was doing a record with, and I don't even think I found out about it in advance. I think I picked it up in a record store. And but when I saw that Bob Ezrin produced it, and then I heard that it had orchestrations on it and stuff like that, I was on board. And I have to say that the songs that I really like, I think I like The Oath a lot. The Oath kind of creeps into my head even now, every once in a while. I think it's a great song. I like A World Without Heroes. I like it more now that I'm older than I did then, and I liked it then. Now I think it's really great. I think the solo is great. The guitar solo is great, and it's Paul, and I think it's an exceptionally good solo. And I'm going to be the guy, I may be the only one, I'm going to be the guy that likes Odyssey, because I do. I like that kind of music, and it's kind of cheesy, but I like the way Paul sings it because he hadn't sung that way before. And at the time, it kind of made me feel like, well, if Kiss ever decided to go full on prog or something like that, that would be a voice that Paul could use. And there are some people out there that say that they like Paul's voice on that song, and I'm one of them. A really interesting thing about that song is that the guy who wrote it, Tony Powers, I guess, was somebody that Paul knew, and Paul asked him if he could use that song. But there is a version of Odyssey that Tony Powers recorded. It's like a demo, and you can listen to it on YouTube, and it's really weird. I mean, I like the song. I think musically it's really interesting, but it's very strange. He sings it, and he sings it in like 3 different voices. And by the time you get halfway through it, you think you know what he sounds like, and then his voice changes. It's very odd. But anyway, I like Only You a lot. And I also think that one of the things that really hurts the Elder is that even though the original track sequence, not the one that it came out with in 1981, but the one that is on the remaster before they tweaked it, I don't think you can start a Kiss album with Fanfare and Just a Boy and then go into Odyssey, because I think that it's just too tough of a sell. I mean, it's okay with it starting with The Oath because it's a really strong track, and I think you can forgive some of the other things that happened later because of it starting out so strong. But I think starting out with that way, Odyssey feels totally wrong on side 1 of anything. And I don't know how it ever got sequenced that way. I mean, I know that Gene says that the story works better if you do it that way, but I always thought that was a really bad thing to do. But I mean, even at the time though, I thought that there were some problems. Like I picked it up, and every up until then, every Kiss album had some kind of great, just really exceptional graphic art. I mean, if you think about all the Kiss albums, start with the first one and go on, the art on the presentation is just great. And so you pick up the Elder, and it looks like wood paneling. It's just somebody's hand on a door, and it doesn't even. When you find out that the protagonist is supposed to be a boy, and it's like an adult hand, and you open it up, and it's like a picture of chairs, and there's this weird story that's too short and doesn't make any sense. I mean, it just seems kind of. I was very confused when I picked it up when I was a kid, but like I said, there are some songs that I think are really. Mr. Black. I'll go back to the flaw issue again. Mr. Blackwell. Who the hell was Mr. Blackwell? You know, if there were more, I think if that album had a booklet like glued into the inside of it where you could read more of the story, it might have made a little bit more sense. But they might have cut that when they changed the sequence. But it sounds to me like they set out to do something really ambitious, and they sensed that it wasn't working, and then they tried to fix it by removing stuff like the dialogue. I think they were afraid of, apparently originally it had dialogue in it and they cut it. And I guess they were worried about how that was going to come across. But if you look at other Bob Ezrin productions, and you look at like Welcome to My Nightmare or The Wall or something like that, those all have, you know, weird stuff in it, people talking and dialogue. But when you listen to those albums, you don't come away thinking, what is this about? What even is this? But with The Elder, there's a little bit of, what is this? But that being said, I like the album because most of the songs I think are good.
Yeah, Mr. Blackwell is like a gossip columnist or something, isn't he? Isn't that a story?
Yeah, and I didn't even realize until like today that that's who he was talking about.
It's so silly.
I thought it was some
He wrote
character
a
in the
diss track
story
to a
that
gossip columnist.
hasn't
like
been
a-
revealed.
Can I make one brief comment? You mentioned Tony Powers. He's also in Goodfellas. He's he's the guy that says, "How you doing? How you doing?"
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Right on. Thanks, Todd. Good points. I'm gonna throw it over to a new friend to the group, Bicycle Legs.
Hi, everyone. I'm a very new patron, just joined up a few days ago. I'm going to take an odd position because I actually kind of I do like the album. I find the material quite interesting, but I'm going to disagree with Brett from what he said in his one-on-one with Marco, where I think it's actually a really bad Kiss album. And in particular, a really bad Kiss album for 1981. Like, it was the worst possible album they could have brought out in 1981. They'd gone through Dynasty, or Dynasty as we call it in Australia, and then they went to Unmasked. I like those albums, but I know a lot of Kiss fans didn't. They were too poppy and all that sort of thing. And Kiss actually said after Unmasked that they were going to do a heavy album. And that was going to be the sort of the comeback to the classic Kiss sound. And then instead they deliver The Elder, which has some heaviness to it, especially like The Oath or whatever. But then it's this kind of prog rock album in 1981 when prog rock is dead. You know, we hadn't even had the neo-prog revival that would come a little later in the decade. It was just a what were they thinking to me. It was just not right. Also, I'm going to disagree with a couple of things that I know Marco has said. One is he said he thought the production is good on The Elder. I think some of the production is good on The Elder, but I think the drum sound on The Elder is really weak. And especially if you go back and listen to Bob Ezrin and what he did with The Wall, listen to a song like In the Flesh. The drums on that are huge. Drum sound like that on The Elder would have made it a much better album. To go with the heavy guitars and stuff, to have a big, heavy drum sound as well, would have made that album sound huge. But instead, the drums are kind of thin and tinny. Like, Eric plays well, but the sound he's given is just not there at all. And the other thing is, I remember when Marco was talking to Brett in their one-on-one, he said that he thinks that I is cheesy. I think lyrically I is a little bit cheesy. I think musically it's really anthemic. And I think it would have been a much better single than World Without Heroes. Because World Without Heroes is a good song. I like it, but it's so out of character for Kiss. And I is much more keeping within that sort of anthemic Kiss feeling. And in fact, I was released as a single here in Australia and did reasonably well. I think it got to about number 26 or something on the charts here. In fact, the album generally, The Elder, did better here in Australia than it probably did anywhere else in the world, because unlike in the US, Unmasked here was huge. Shandy was a top 10 hit. In fact, when Kiss tour Australia, they still play Shandy in concert. So The Elder actually did a bit better here in Australia, and I think that was at least in part because they released I as the single, and I did pretty well. Like, not super well, but it did pretty well on the charts. So, I mean, that's my sort of wrap up with it. I came into Kiss through my big sister because I was 10 when The Elder came out, but my big sister was 14. She was massive into Kiss. So we listened to Kiss all the time because, being the big sister, she was always in charge of the record player. And so I grew up with all those Kiss records. And I remember when the Elder came out, and yeah, I mean, I just think it's an interesting record, and I like listening to it because I'm a bit of a prog person. I like, I got into prog in the sort of mid 80s, and I can appreciate it from that point of view. But as a Kiss album, I just don't think it works at all. So, yeah.
Good point. Great point about I being anthemic, sounding more like a Kiss song, for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, the lyrics are cheesy, but I think that's kind of because of the concept. That's because of the concept, the whole concept. It's the boy, learning his self-belief so that he can go on his mission and all that sort of thing. But I mean, the riffs in that, I think, are just really good.
And I love Unmasked too. I love Dynasty and Unmasked.
Yeah, and as I say, Unmasked, it was a huge hit in Australia. That's why they came and toured Australia rather than touring America, because it didn't do well in America. It came to us. My big sister was so disappointed because my parents wouldn't let her go and see Kiss at Lang Park because she was only 13, and she was like, "No, you're not going to a concert when you're 13." And yeah, but that tour, I remember when that happened, it was massive here. They were playing stadiums, like football stadiums.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm going to throw it over to Tim next. I know he's got some cool stuff he's going to show off, so I'm excited to see it.
Well, I try to come prepared with props, and I dug out all the formats that I have the Elder on. Some of you that don't know, I have a YouTube channel, Tim's Vinyl Confessions, and actually Matt, my friend Matt, who's co-hosted a lot of shows, we actually did an entire episode dedicated to the Elder. So a lot of this is going to be repetition from that. But first of all, you have the world's most visual group for the very first time with a new member. Not one photo of the band on the cover, unless you count the fact that supposedly that's Paul's hand. And the hand motif extends to the record itself, because it's on there. Got a Dutch version of the cassette, cropped the cover art a little bit. I did have the original issued CD with that original track listing. I ended up getting the 97 remaster actually to trade for the cassette. I still think that this, starting off with Fanfare and then Just a Boy, and then the first band song being Odyssey is a very strange choice. And if anybody knows anything about me, was not going to be surprised to see this. I even have it on 8-track, which is not the easiest one to find. But actually, the songs are in order on here based on the original 1981. So like it starts with The Oath and goes in order from there. And I mentioned this before we started filming. This is an excellent book for someone who really wants to go down the rabbit hole of music from the Elder. This is called Odyssey, and it's written by Tim McFate and Julian Gill. Julian Gill's a name a lot of people will recognize from the Kiss FAQ. I would recommend this only if you're a diehard fan of this album. Even if you're a diehard Kiss fan and don't like the Elder, I don't know if you'll get much out of this book. it's almost got too much information in it, but in a good way. All things Elder are contained in here. So now that I got that out of the way, I got into Kiss fairly late. I never cared much for them. I never got into them until 1993, which sounds, I know that probably sounds like an odd time to get into Kiss, because who was getting into Kiss in 1993? I heard a lot of Alive 3 at that time because it had just come out, and it actually had a lot of the Kiss songs that I did like all in one place. And I thought, you know what, maybe it's time I actually took them seriously and checked them out. But I always knew a little bit about Kiss, and one thing I did know about them is that they had this album called The Elder that they didn't seem to like to talk about. And of course, when I hear something like that, I go, why? Why didn't they want to talk about it? I want to know more about it. And when I got into the band, I started pretty conservatively. I bought Destroyer, nothing too strange there, and then started gradually getting more and more into the catalog. And eventually I came upon The Elder. And like I mentioned, my friend Matt before, he and I were he's one of the guys that was responsible for me getting into this band, but we were so intrigued by the concept of this concept album, but the fact that this album is such an outlier in the Kiss catalog, we actually would sit with pen and paper and try to write out what we thought the lyrics were, and got it spectacularly wrong in some cases. Like in The Oath, we wrote down, "Now inside the valley of the ancient birds." Like, we're just doing our best because to this day, there's no version of The Elder that prints out the lyrics, not even the remastered version. So I'm going to go on record as saying I like The Elder, but I like The Elder, and you have to keep in mind the timeline of it. Like I said, I got into Kiss in 1993. So I was introduced to the entire Kiss catalog from the first album through Revenge all at once. So I was buying Kiss albums and CDs left and right. I had listened to one, yeah, that's pretty good. I listened to the next one, yeah, that one's not so good. So The Elder just being one of many, many albums that I got to experience all at once is different than if I'd had been an actively listening Kiss fan waiting for the next Kiss album to come out, and The Elder was what came out. I'm not so sure I'd have the same opinion of it. I think it would be a totally different thing. I will say that I think The Oath absolutely rocks. I think I is a classic Kiss song. Cheesy lyrics. Okay, tomorrow and tonight, we can rock all day, we can roll all night. Kiss always had cheesy lyrics. It's just a different brand of cheese, if you like. And Marco, I'm surprised that you don't appreciate I, because I know you love Elvis, and Paul does a "don't need no money." He does his best Elvis impression in there. I love Eric Carr's double bass on The Oath, and I actually really like Dark Light. It's such a quirky song, and I think because it's quirky, it fits because it's Ace. There used to be, I actually just listened to the entire album before this started. I wanted it fresh in my mind. But there used to be online, there was a website called sacktrick.com, who I think is actually a Kiss tribute band. I'm not 100% sure about that. Maybe one of you guys knows. But they actually wrote a review that was a fictional review if Kiss actually did an Elder concert live, and it was at Cobo Hall in Detroit, and showing how they mixed in the Kiss the classic songs with some of the newer Elder songs. I actually found myself thinking, wow, that would have been a fun concert to be at. For instance, Gene did his blood spitting and then went into Mr. Blackwell as opposed to God of Thunder, which to me totally makes sense. I think it's very gutsy of them to do an album like this. I know that there were, all common sense was thrown out the window. The concept got out of hand. But I'm really glad. It was really fun to get into a big catalog like the Kiss catalog and have that one strange oddity just sitting there saying, why don't you listen to me? And so I do like it. Is it my favorite? No, my favorites on any given day are either Dynasty or Creatures of the Night. But I love that whole period from 1980 to 1983 when we're not sure when Ace is out and Benny's in and what's going on, and then the big show in Brazil. I love that period. Yes, and I agree with I think can't remember which one of you said it, I'm sorry, but those performances on Fridays that I first saw when Kissology 2 came out, I agree. Those are really, really awesome, but you can tell that Ace had no idea about the actual solo on the Oath because he's just doing his Ace licks, but I still like it. That's kind of all I have to say about it. I'm an Elder fan. I'm definitely in the pro Elder camp.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that a lot. I actually had Elder on cassette and vinyl, but I don't have any physical stuff anymore. But I do on your show. I was a guest and I showed some of my like DVD bootleg stuff. And I think I showed my Elder bootleg, which I think I mentioned in the Elder thing I did.
All
with
the things
Brett.
that were associated with the Elder time period. By the way, before I mute, if you hear what sounds like a cat yowling in the background, that's our kitten. I apologize for that, but let's just say that it's Peter Criss complaining that we're not talking about one of his albums.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that a lot. Why don't we go with Grant next?
All right. Well, I'm not exactly sure. I'm just going to go with it. Tim, I think you had a lot of great points. The worst thing about the Elder was timing. Had the Elder appeared earlier in the 70s when, you had The Wall and you had Quadrophenia, I think it would have been a different thing. 1981, I'm going to go on a limb and I'm going to say The Elder was probably the best concept album of 1981. And I don't know if anybody can disagree with that, but I'm going to say that it's probably the best one of 81. I think side 2 works better than side 1. Though I do like side 1. I mean, if you listen to Paul Stanley's Soul Station, you get a lot of falsetto on that. So he was just preparing. I mean, I think Paul's into that. I don't know. I don't have a problem with side 1, but if you look at Dark Light, I love Dark Light. It's just another great Ace song, great solo. It might be a little loose, but come on, it's Ace. But the solo in Mr. Blackwell is freaking killer. And no one's mentioned that, but the solo in Blackwell, as far as Ace goes, is one of his best solos. So I'm impressed with Ace's work on the record. World Without Heroes, I like that. And I agree. I don't know who mentioned it, but I think this is probably one of Gene's strongest efforts. All of Gene's songs are great. I mean, you know, Mr. Blackwell's kind of like a god of thunder for the Elder. You know, kind of. I mean, Mr. Blackwell's probably the weakest track, but all the other Gene tracks I think are great. And his vocal performance is top notch. It's the best Gene vocal performance on record. Escape from the Island, I like that. Which I think is another anthem that I don't think they've ever played that in concert. Someone could correct me. I don't know, but it's like Shout It Out Loud or Detroit Rock City. I think I's a great track. And as far as lyrics go, and whoever said it, I'm trying to keep track. Kiss lyrics are always been cheesy. Look at Plaster Caster. I'll just leave it at that. I don't even have to quote it. So Gene's lyrics have never been top notch, but I, as a tune, I mean, there are great songs on this album. I think the timing was poor, and I can't fault them for being creative. I mean, look at XTC. They did the Dukes of Stratosphere, and no one shit all over them for that. I think Kiss was stereotyped with having one sound. And the hardcore Kiss fanatics just can't get over that. If it doesn't sound like Rock and Roll Over, holy crap, we can't have it. And I can't fault them for being creative. And I think if this album came after freaking Destroyer, which was creative as hell, it might have been different, because it's not that far off from Destroyer in my eyes. Because look at Flaming Youth, for God's sakes. Is that, I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know. I think a lot of the hardcore Kiss fans just can't handle it. And I remember when this came out, and we we got it. I mean, I'd been following Kiss since '76, and we really didn't think that much about it at the time. Maybe we were different. I don't know. But I think it's a great record. And if you can kind of separate yourself from it being a Kiss album, it's a concept album. Who really here knows what The Wall is about? If you're going to sit down and listen to The Wall, can you really tell me what the hell's going on with The Wall? And if you listen to Tommy, you don't really know what's going on there. And Quadrophenia is very loose. You have no idea what's going on with Quadrophenia, really. So, you know, the whole idea of a concept album's always kind of questionable as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I was going to say, who the hell knows what the story is in The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway?
Exactly. Tell me what's going on with that. So, you know, the fault Kiss for this, hey, at least they were trying to be creative. And there are good songs on it, good production. It's got Ace Frehley, for crying out loud. I'm an Elder fan.
Maybe the mistake they made with the Elder was that they didn't make it a double.
I don't know if they had. I don't know. I haven't read the whole book yet, that Elder book. I don't know if they had enough material. Weren't they trying to pull material?
I'm just saying all those other albums we mentioned, they're all double albums. So,
true. Well, Dukes of Stratosphere is a single album.
Yeah. But also, I was going to go back to your XTC thing, whereas, you know, Kiss suddenly doing a really eclectic album was very jarring. XTC were always eclectic. And I think that's also why Kiss were a massive band, and XTC, who I love to death.
I love XTC.
Were never a massive band, unfortunately.
Well, that's a good point.
And it's probably at least in part because of their constant eclecticism.
But anyway, I've spoken.
Cool. Good points, Grant. I just want to defend one thing. I
Go
think
ahead.
it's a little different when Kiss is singing about like chicks and partying than when they're trying to be serious. I think when they're trying to be serious, it comes across.
Because that's in your head. You got to let that go. Who says they can't change? That's what I'm trying to say.
I guess.
Why can't they be serious for once?
I know, but when they're talking about like sitting in a sundress and stuff, I don't know, it just comes across a little weak to me. But
I'm just saying, I'm just trying to think outside of it. That's
it's no different when they did Carnival of Souls. The lyrical content of the album was very serious compared to everything else they did prior.
Yeah, good point.
That's all. I'm just trying to think outside the normal Kiss brain.
Yeah, that's all. That's true about Carnival of Souls, but what's also true about Carnival of Souls is it also stiffed.
So at some point, I don't know if you want to do it now or after everyone speaks, I'd like to go into like the actual history that I experienced since Alive and what actually happened with the albums. So I don't know if you want me to talk about it now or after everyone.
That's up to Marco.
Sure. Why don't we get to everybody first, and then I'll throw it back to you at the end. So why don't we go with Reed next?
Okay. So I've been kind of making notes as we go along here. I didn't come in with a lot of pre-prepared material. I will say right off the bat, I am firmly in the non-Elder camp. I do not like this album. And I think it has nothing to do with it being a different album. Although I will note for the record that different and good are not synonyms. So I don't mind that they tried something different. I mind that the results aren't, in my opinion, good. And as everybody has shared a little bit of history, I actually missed this album when it came out. I said in my solo show with Marco, I started listening to Kiss in 1977, but I actually skipped from Dynasty to Lick It Up. And then when I was in college, one of my college roommates had music from the Elder, and I listened to it, and I do not remember listening to it. I mean, excuse me, I remember listening to it. I don't remember what the music sounded like. It made that little impression on me. I just went, okay, don't need to listen to this again. And I didn't listen to it again until yesterday. And I thought, I'm going to give this album another try. So it's not been very long since we did the solo album show. So I just listened to the 4 solo albums. And that may have informed how I heard music from the Elder, but I listened to it and just thought, these are not good performances. I will go down on record as I fought for Paul's vocal delivery on his solo album as being my favorite thing about any of the solo albums. I love Paul's voice in the 70s. Music from the Elder is his worst vocal performance on album, as far as I'm concerned. I think that Mr. Blackwell's an interesting track because I actually like that song. I don't think it fits the loose concept of music from the Elder, but I think it's one of the stronger songs on the album. But for me, some albums have songs that are so strong, it elevates your opinion of the entire album, right? The Elder is the opposite of that for me. I dislike this album so much that even the songs I like less because of the rest of the music. Several people have mentioned Paul's falsetto vocals. And this is just a guess, but I think that is Paul going back to his love of The Who and imitating Pete Townsend. In fact, Just a Boy, that could come right off of Tommy. It's actually, I think it is a Tommy song. I'm Just a Boy. Maybe it's Quadrophenia. I'm getting my Who mixed up.
Well, that would be Tommy.
Yeah. So I think he was trying to do that sort of thing like Pete Townsend does with the high vocals, but I don't think he pulls it off. Let's see here. What else have I got? Oh, Sack Trick. I don't know a lot about Sack Trick, except that Sack Trick includes a couple of members that played on Bruce Dickinson's Skunk Works. And that's the 3rd time I've been able to bring up Bruce Dickinson's Skunk Works on one of these chats. So go me. Let's see here. I think a good concept album has to hold together whether you know what the concept is or not. And Tommy and Quadrophenia are great examples of that. If somebody tells you the story behind them, and Pete Townsend has very, extensive stories for those albums, you can kind of nod and go, okay, yeah, I can see that. But you don't have to have the story to enjoy the songs. I don't know if I would get that same experience from the Elder, but I don't know the story of music from the Elder, so I guess we'll never know. I thought Dark Light sounds kind of like a demo for Ace's solo album that didn't make it. And I will say that just in general, I think part of being part of an enthusiast community, and even though I started out as a kid listening to Kiss and consider myself a lifelong Kiss fan, I'm not a militant Kiss fanatic. I'm not a Kiss enthusiast. But when you are an enthusiast, part of that fandom is embracing the black sheep of the family, right? That makes you what you are. It gives you an identity that's different from all of those other people that don't get it. But in this case, when it comes to music from the Elder, I'm part of the people that don't get it. Yes, they did try something different. I think it was a failure. Bob Ezrin has gone on record as saying, hey, we just didn't have the material to pull it off. I listened to an interview with Bob Ezrin yesterday where he talked about making that album. And he's like, hey, we didn't have the material, which I agree with. So just doing a concept album, they might have pulled off, but not this album. And all of that isn't to say that people can't legitimately enjoy this album. I am not the taste police. People should love what they love, but doggone, if it's another 30 years before I listen to this album again, that will be cool with me.
So have you
I just
heard
want to
the-
add something real quick.
Sure.
Don't forget when Destroyer was released, Destroyer was heading down the same path that the Elder did. If it wasn't for Beth, we would look at Destroyer as being another Elder. Just saying.
Well, perhaps. I will say, one, I actually prefer both Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun to Destroyer. I know Destroyer is a favorite with people. And I think Beth is a hilarious song because people think it's a love song. And it's actually about a guy in a band who's handpicked by his girlfriend, who's calling him up all the time and saying, hey, why aren't you home? I mean, if it hadn't been arranged like it was by Ezra, people would not have thought that was a love song. That song cracks me up.
Have you
So-
heard? Have you heard the demo of "Don't Run," which actually became Dark Light?
I have not, no.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar. So I'm glad you brought that up. It does sound like a demo.
Cool. All right, that's my piece.
Cool, good points, Reed. Why don't I throw it over to Nick?
Sure, Margot. I'm elder positive, and I'll begin with a question. Marco, you have been summoned here to offer your judgment of the boy. Do you still deem him worthy of the fellowship?
I certainly do, my lord.
I'll see your cheesy and silly lyrics on the elder and raise you burn bitch burn all night, bang bang you, and to bring it around again, because I'm going to throw the unmasked under the bus, she's so European. That's absurd.
I like that song a lot.
I as Paul said, that's your problem. That's your problem. The thing is, I was stuck in a car yesterday, moving my daughter to college, and for 2.5 hours, we were really at a standstill. And I got the bright idea, let's play The Elder. So I was actually able to play that album in the car in front of an 18-year-old and 9-year-old and not have to suffer through some of the puerile lyrics that I just mentioned. So it's actually an album that I could play amongst girls. And my daughter quite enjoyed it, actually. She liked all the stuff, and she's a fan of different types of music. She even liked the Odyssey, a reminder of something from a musical. She heard elements of Queen on the album. She liked The Oath. She's a fan, casual fan of Kiss and AC/DC and Queen, and likes all the other stuff that 18-year-olds like, but she actually liked it. I think the only clinker in her mind, and I've heard it now during our discussion, is she really didn't care much for Mr. Blackwell, but she actually thought it was pretty good. So it was interesting as a social experiment hearing from an 18-year-old, and she thought it was cool. Some notes I had, some of the songs I was listening yesterday. Yeah, Just the Boy, that awesome pick drag. You see a pick drag in Escape from the Island too. You get a Bo Diddley drum beat in Escape from the Island. Someone mentioned you got the doing Paul with his best Elvis imitation. So there's all these like Easter eggs in there. Even though they had problems with Ezra and the production, you still got these really cool things that you've never heard in a Kiss album before or since. I thought Only You has some of the coolest Kiss riffage you've ever heard, as well as the riffage in Under the Rose. I mean, that's some of the best Kiss stuff going on. And matter of fact, I'd invite everybody at the end here. We should all sing the chorus to Under the Rose if we're near a parking garage or a stairwell. But that, my daughter loved that, actually. That was like one of her highlights, that the chorus is. So that was kind of cool too. But I also think that Gene is in full flower with his growl throughout that album. He's in full like, oh yeah, he's all over the place. It's good stuff. Dark Light. I know there's some criticism of that song here today, but Dark Light is Ace's version of a 70s cop show theme. It sounds like a Beretta with his dry cowbell. He's got congas going on there. So I always liked that song. I thought that was different and a cool one for Ace. I know it gets criticized. The band members are criticized. Ace has criticized I guess his guitar sound was toned down. I know Eric was unhappy with the drum sound, which was of its time at the time in '81. But you also have some double bass on the album too, which is nice. But I think the album gets unfairly slagged, and I think that it deserves a listen. And I actually have it ranked top 5 or 6 of all Kiss albums. So maybe I'm an outlier with that one.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. I'm surprised when you put the record on, you two girls didn't jump out of the car and run to school after that.
Well, one did. She ran out. She was actually, but I was a full air guitar, air drums. It was fun.
Nice. Very cool.
You brought up the drum sound. Yeah, Eric Carr doesn't play drums on right? They haven't. It's like Ezrin always has to pull in that studio musician for certain songs.
Well,
Yeah,
according to
Alan
Ezra,
Schwartzberg.
Yeah, but when they played it on Fridays, he played it perfectly. I don't know. Ezrin drives me crazy as a producer, but that's a whole other thing.
Let me throw in with
Yeah.
I real quick as one of the best Gene bass lines of all time in that song. And you get Paul at his maximum. Listen, you even get a listen in that song or listen. So like, that one's like, and oh, by the way, you get Gene and Paul singing together too, which you don't often get. So
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
true, yeah.
But there's a lot of
They
great
sing together.
bass
What's the
from
other
Gene
track
on
they
it.
sing together on that? They sing is it
um,
Under the Rose or that they sing together too? Paul takes over at one point?
I think it's just but I could be
Or
wrong.
Only You?
another
maybe?
one where he sings
I swear Paul comes in
Oh,
on another
only
song.
you.
He
Only
might.
you. He comes in.
Only You.
He comes in the middle, and also another
Yeah,
thing
in
about
every
only,
age and every time. Yeah, that's right.
another thing about Only You. That riff is he uses it again on Unholy. Because Gene likes to recycle a lot of his riffs. And when you listen to The Vault, I don't know if anybody here has it. I brought it up before. That's all it is. It's like, oh my God. It's not a pleasant listen. It's Gene
I-
ruminating.
Just real quick. Listen to Domino, and then listen to the song "Nasty Nasty" by Black and Blue. Da 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 da.
Cool, I'll have to do that. All right, we got one guy left, the elder himself, Brett. We've already kind of done our own little Patreon discussion about the elder, but I'm going to throw it over to you and get your point of view.
Yeah, I don't really, when it comes to my opinions on the album, I don't really think I have much else to say compared to what I already said. But I think Bicycle Legs had disagreed with me when I said that I thought it's not a great record, but it's a good Kiss record. And one of the reasons why I enjoyed it so much was because of the fact that it was so different from everything else. By that point, they were a band that was pretty much, they were stuck at a crossroads, or no pun intended, they were at rock bottom essentially by that point. So for them to do this, they were like, well, what do we have to lose really? And I respect them for that. And I had also mentioned it was a gateway album for me. I listened to that record and then I realized, oh, there's more beyond this than just, the first 3 or 4 albums. But I did want to touch on something that, who was it? I think it was Bicycle Legs that also said it, that one of your problems with it was that Gene said it was a heavy album leading up to the release. And around this time was when Gene, I feel, really started to shoot himself in the foot when it comes to trying to compare what the further albums were going to be. It was around this time, I think he said, we have Bob Ezrin producing it, so it's going to sound like The Destroyer. And then you fast forward like a couple years later, and it just seems like with every album they were putting out, they were comparing it to, it's going to be Creatures of the Night and Revenge and Destroyer all in the one, and you listen to the record and it's not. And I felt that was, they shouldn't have did that. But I do know at one point they did say that they wanted to make a more serious record, which that started around this time. The Friday, I know a couple of people that said they really enjoyed the Friday performance. And one thing that's interesting about that was when they recorded The Oath, Paul actually didn't want to do falsetto vocals. He wanted to sing it in his normal voice, his normal vocal tone, but he couldn't get it. But if you actually listen to the Friday's performance, there are points when he's not hitting the falsettos, he's just singing his normal voice, and it sounds great. So I'm not entirely sure why that was. But yeah, I don't, like I said, I talked about this for 30 minutes about a month ago, so I don't really have much else new to say, but I did enjoy what everyone else had to say about it. I think everybody brought up some really good points as to why it's a good record, or why it's not even the people that were saying they didn't like the record. I really thought those were good points as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Do you know who Mr. Blackwell is?
Mr. Blackwell. No, I do not know who Mr. Blackwell is. I wasn't familiar with that story. about him writing it.
Did I
about-
make that up? Did I dream that? Or
We certainly
does
didn't
anybody know
talk
what I'm
about it.
talking about? That this guy was like a gossip columnist and he said something about Gene and Cher or something like this. Is that real?
Well,
I thought
I think there is a
I
Mr.
thought that-
Blackwell that was a gossip columnist,
yeah,
like a
because
New
around this
York or
time he was
I-
dating Diana Ross, I believe.
I remember hearing about him being like a fashion critic, and I could be wrong, but I think it was Twisted Sister. He called something about the 5 ugliest women in the world or something like that. So he's a real person, and Reed's absolutely right. That song conceptually has nothing to do with the rest of the album.
No.
You know, like Blackwell, you know, unless in the story, Mr. Blackwell was the big bad, you know, the Darth Vader of the story or whatever. But
I think that was the concept, like, or at
Yeah.
least that was how they tried to shoehorn it in.
If
in,
you,
in
if
this
you
in this book, they made the writers of this book made a concerted effort to track down and find out whether or not dialogue was actually recorded, to the point where they actually talked to, I think, one of the voice actors, and they never did locate the actual dialogue. But man, you know, when they do expanded issues of some of these albums that come out, like the ones Metallica do and stuff like that, how cool would it be if they found all of everything that they had on the Elder? I know this is the last album they'd ever do a deluxe edition from, but it's the one I'd probably like the most to see what's out there.
It's the 40th anniversary. I mean, what do they have to lose? Just put
Exactly.
something out there. You know,
I would love nothing more than a box set, you know, with whatever they could find, whatever possibly they have from it. But unfortunately, you know, we're not going to get it. I would even be happy with just like a vinyl re-release. Maybe you do some like cool colored prints and like a t-shirt or something. Like just give me that. I'll be happy.
Yeah,
Well,
let's
didn't Ace-
be honest. A reissue of The Elder would be far from the silliest thing they've ever marketed.
Exactly.
Yeah, it would, I bet you. I mean, they just had that. They released those tapes from the Tokyo show. I mean, that couldn't have sold that much.
I mean, you talk about Kiss marketing. I don't know if you had it over in the United States, but when Kiss were huge here around Dynasty and Unmasked, you could actually get, and I'm not making this up, Kiss underpants.
Mhm.
We probably
Didn't
did.
they also have like popsicles or something?
Yes, there were
Yeah.
Kiss ice blocks that you could get.
That's awesome.
So-
Tim, have you read the whole book, the whole Elder book?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then you know in the chapter when they talk to the guy, he's like the only guy that owns a copy of the script, how different the movie was going to be from what the actual story in the album was.
Yeah.
It was like
And
a
I
kid-
love the fact that they tracked down the photographer that did the model of the door. I mean, the amount of work that went into putting that together, I just, you have to admire it.
which
So
is
Julian-
so funny because Paul
sorry.
swears Paul swears all the time that that's his hand on a door in a church somewhere like in the city, but it's not his hand, and it's not.
I
it's not
thought there
real
was a
door.
photo of him doing it.
Yeah, but that's not
Well,
from what I understand.
That's
That's not
kind
from
of
the.
what this drawing is based on, but that's not an actual photo.
Yeah.
But he's also claimed that he hit his hand with a hammer. I mean, these guys have rewritten their own history. How
There
many
is
times?
no other band in the history of music that has rewritten their history as much as they
Yeah.
are.
Which I would
Exactly.
like to address that. So I want to start with Grant when he brought up Destroyer and Bob Ezrin. That the interview that Bob Ezrin, that was on 3 Sides. Last week.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, but yeah. So you know, there was a fan base that came on during a live, obviously. So they released Destroyer, and it tanks. I mean, and
Yeah.
it's a weird album, and then all of a sudden, and Bob Ezrin was getting death threats, and Kiss panicked and went and basically recorded a live album in Rock and Roll Over at a theater. Then Beth hits, and then this whole huge fan base happens. And then from my experience growing up in Chicago, you know, they were huge. Live 2 came out, and then, you know, side 4 of a live 2 were like, holy shit, this is great music. And then the solo albums came out, and I know, you know, my friends and the metal guys liked Aces, but the rest, we didn't care about. Paul's is very good though. But something happened where, you know, in my in Chicago, you had UFO all of a sudden. Guys are getting into the Rush, Pink Floyd, The Wall, Led Zeppelin's catalog, started getting huge. And then they released Dynasty, and it killed Kiss in Chicago. I know it's a multi-platinum album, but this was Disco Demolition. All of a sudden, they recorded a disco album, and then they followed that up with Unmasked. So by the time they released The Elder, yeah, they're rock bottom. And even Creatures of the Night, they were rock bottom. And I saw them in that tour. I was at University of Iowa, and we had to drive to Dubuque. That's the closest city. They didn't play Chicago. They played. I know they played L.A. and a couple other, but it was mostly like tertiary markets, not even secondary markets. So we went to Dubuque, Iowa, with the Plasmatics opening up, and we didn't know if Ace was there. And then we found out it was Vinnie Vincent, but it was still the best concert I've ever seen. But I think they had like 2,500 people there. And Eric Carr threw a drumstick and it went over the crowd and hit the floor and back. I mean, there was no one there. So, and then as far as in Chicago, I mean, yeah, they made the comeback when they took the makeup off, but in Chicago, they never drew until the reunion. So Dynasty really killed them in the Chicago market.
It's interesting though, people say, oh, Dynasty, it's their disco album. It's got a disco song on it.
One song. Yeah.
Dirty Living.
The rest of the album is poppier than the usual Kiss, but it's still very Kiss.
Dirty Living.
2000 Man is my favorite Ace track on any song or on any Kiss album.
Oh, 2000 Man kills. It's great. I would even argue that it's better than the Stones version.
That's not a hard argument for me. I think the Stones version is pretty weak.
I think.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, but the Stones.
I'm an apologist for Satanic Majesty's request. So
the Stones disown that album. They're not a big fan of Saint.
Oh, I know, but I'm an apologist for it. I happen to really like that album.
That's great.
Who was it that said that? I think "World Without Heroes" was one of Gene's best vocal performances.
It is a beautiful vocal performance. Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, you actually have Gene actually singing on it.
Yeah.
It's just
I think Gene was at a peak at that time, like in that 2-year period, because two I think of the best Gene vocals on an album are X-Ray Eyes and Naked City. I think he sings fantastic.
Naked City
on those songs.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that.
Yep,
as a vocalist, I think he might have been at his peak.
Yeah.
Reggae Kiss does a really cool with Naked City. If anybody listens to Reggae Kiss, they do an awesome Naked City. Yeah, they're a band they're like a Swedish band that does covers all Kiss, but they do it in reggae.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, check them out.
Bit like Dread Zeppelin.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone here has heard it, but actually the Cher version of World Without Heroes is actually really good.
Right.
Oh, I did. Yeah,
Bob Kulick plays on that album, I believe.
And is it Doro Pesh does a version of Only You?
Doro Pesh does Only You. We talked about it on the video. You had Arch Enemy do a very, very heavy version of The Oath, and then there's this band called Black Angel that did a really good cover of Under the Rose.
Does anybody know if Ace ever did Dark Light live?
Yeah, he did it on the cruise.
On the cruise, yeah.
That's what I heard. I never heard it though.
Oh, it was a mess.
It was
a
mess.
Did it in practice.
Yeah, were you there?
No, I wasn't there, but I saw it on the YouTube, and I know guys that were there.
Yeah, I was there live, and he played it the first night. I believe it was the first night of the cruise when they did the outdoor shows. He played it, and he screwed it up. Like he was getting the lyrics wrong and everything like that. It was cool to see it, because it was the closest you were going to get. Like I don't even think they even did anything from the Elder during the acoustic show, because I know sometimes they were pulling out.
Wasn't A World Without Heroes on the Unplugged album, or am I wrong?
That's on the Unplugged, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
They played The Oath on one of the cruises, I believe.
Yeah,
yes, that was a surprise.
They played.
Yeah, somebody said that. That's what I was gonna say. Somebody had mentioned if they played it on the Christmas. I believe they did like this Elder type medley, where they did The Oath and I.
Were people jumping overboard?
No, the crowd went crazy. I mean, you can find it all.
If you're on the Kiss cruise, you're hardcore. They probably loved it.
Yeah.
They did,
Yeah.
that stuff, when they do the obscure stuff, it goes over really well. And like the year that I went, 2018, it was the second year they had Bruce Kulick's band. And the set list that he does is phenomenal.
Bruce Kulick's
And you
band
have-
is awesome. Yeah.
he did Sword and Stone, he was doing stuff off Carnival of Souls, he was doing like, I think they opened
Asylum
up
and
King of the
stuff.
Mountain. Yeah, and those are the people that are there watching that performance are the hardcore fans that, if they did wind up doing something from the Elder, they would freak out and appreciate
So-
it.
Now we're talking about live performances, going back to the Fridays. How do you guys think a tour would have panned out? Because, when I saw that performance and I was, as I said before, I was kind of in the middle about the album, but I was pumped to see them live. And then thinking about Creatures of the Night tour, that didn't draw at all. So how do you think an Elder tour would have done in the United States?
If the
It
tour
probably
was
would have done about what the Creatures of the Night tour did. It was just Kiss
Yeah.
going back on the tour.
And how do you think it would
it's
have?
funny.
They would have had a cool
If
stage
those
show.
were the only 3 songs that they did from that album, I mean, a lot of bands put on new albums. They might do one new song from it. That
Yeah.
wasn't so common back then. Back then, you front loaded you loaded up your set with the new album. But I think that they probably would have maintained a little bit more of a following if they'd actually toured. But back then, you didn't tour unless you had a successful album. Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of what happened to Queen. I'm jumping off topic here, but in the mid 80s, they stopped touring North America because their albums weren't selling as well. And Queen disappeared. I mean, they disappeared until Wayne's World.
That show, that was the Hot Space tour, and that show kicked ass. I hate that album, but yeah, you're right. And
That was a fantastic tour.
Oh, that live at the Bowl.
But that was
concert,
the
Hot
last
Space
tour of the
That's
US.
awesome.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're
Billy
only
Squier
talking about
opening,
the
that would've been
material
awesome.
here, though. You have to remember that Ace was really not in a good place. He would not have been
No.
good in the live shows then.
Well,
So
that's a good point.
if they had toured, it might not have worked out well for them.
If you
That's true.
check out the book, they have like a scan of kind of like a contract. They were actually looking to
Yeah.
hire session musicians for the tour because of the fact that at that point Ace had pretty much already checked out. But whether or not a tour would have been successful, I think if it was a more stripped down version, you kind of comparing it to like the Creatures of the Night tour, maybe. But with the idea that they had where they wanted to have a stage show and actors, and they wanted to have all these really top of the line, state of the
That
art
would've been amazing.
special effects, it would have been amazing. But it just if they would have
And a
tried to do
big
it,
door that opens
Yeah.
up.
like a cauldron. It was if you read the book, but then also I believe the guy that was in charge of the stage design, who also did the Destroyer stuff, he did a pretty good interview with Three Sides of the Coin, like maybe a year or so ago, and he talked about all the ideas. But yeah, I see Tim. They have
Yeah. They predated Miley Cyrus. They were going to have a wrecking ball on stage.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, Miley Cyrus, she ripped off the Plasmatics logo and everything else in the new album, and the Plasmatics have what's left of them have no recourse against them. I'm glad you brought that up because there is a tie in the Kiss here because the Plasmatics opened up on the Creatures of the Night, and
And then
Simmons
Gene
won.
did Gene,
Right,
well,
yeah.
Gene and Ace and who else appeared on that Wendy O. Williams album? That's almost a
Vinny,
Kiss album.
Vinny, Eric
Guys.
Carr, yeah, it's all.
Yeah.
Paul Stanley plays the whole a song on it. It's just him, but anyway.
Guys,
Yeah, you brought up Miley Cyrus. She rips off the Plasmatics with that new album.
does she wear the whipped cream bikini? You know what? It doesn't matter. Hey, I've got to check out for the night. This has been a lot of fun.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Reed.
All right.
Thanks
night,
a lot.
everyone.
Reed. Take care.
I think that's a pretty good spot to end the discussion, and
Yeah.
appreciate everybody showing up tonight. That was a lot of fun, and stay tuned. I think we're gonna have more stuff like this. I know the Elder's kind of like the elephant graveyard for Kiss records, but this was a really fun discussion, and I'm glad everybody came out. And I do like the record. I am a huge Kiss fan. I like Unmasked, Asylum. I actually think the Elder's better than Psycho Circus, which probably
Well, that's
isn't
easy.
typical.
That's not hard.
That's not hard. Well, this should get a lot of comments when she posts it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'm
the
gonna
last
post
one
it
got-
right away.
The last one was really positive, so I appreciate
Mm-hmm.
that from everybody. It was fun getting the chance to talk about that with Marco.
Yeah, it was a good show. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Joe,
Thank you.
if you can hear me, if you can stand up and walk over to your wall and put your hand up, I think we've solved the mystery of the elders.
Yeah, there we go.
Ah!
Right.
Was it Joseph? Was it Joe that said there's no book about Destroyer? Was it you that said that?
There's no book about Destroyer?
You
I
said
don't
you're
know.
like,
There-
oh well, there's no book about Destroyer.
No, I
There
didn't.
Well, I said, I don't know if there is. There
There-
might
there-
be.
there-
Hell, I don't
There
know.
is. It's called Shout It Out Loud: The Story of Kiss's
Right,
Destroyer. Is
yeah.
out by Jam Campion. It covers like the time period when they recorded it between 75 and 76.
I have
So I
to
just wanted to
check
get
that
that out
out.
there before I forgot.
Awesome.
Check
Thanks,
it out.
everybody. And if you at home want to jump in on the conversation, we have our Patreon page. Jump over there. You can jump in on any tier and you can join any of our discussions. And this is really cool. Lately, we've been doing a lot of stuff with Patreon, and I hope to keep up the pace and continue to do stuff like this on a more regular basis, where we do panel discussions and maybe even some more well, we definitely will be doing more one-on-one stuff. So hopefully anybody who wants to reach out and do like a one-on-one thing, just send me a message on Patreon and we'll figure something out. And thanks
Cool.
a lot, everybody.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Thanks.